Hi, I'm Bry Cox with BryCoxWORKSHOPS.com, and for this week's photography Q&A, I got actually a few questions that I'm combining into one. And the first question was, are you Nikon or Canon? And also a lot of times I get questions when I'm speaking as to what my radios I use or what lights I use. And I also had just a general question as to what gear I use. I'm combining all of that to one question. And so to answer the first one, Nikon, Canon, Nikon. I shoot Nikon. So years ago, I shot Hasselblad. Then with digital, I went to Fuji because they had the best color. And then kind of like after Fuji is like, okay, what's the next thing? You know, I almost went to Canon. I actually did some programs for Canon. I've spoke for Canon, shot a lot of their cameras. I even own a little Canon point and shoot. I've had quite a few Canon point and shoots along through the years. But for me, it's color, and I really like the color straight out of my Nikon cameras. And so another question, and actually this is from a different photographer, asking what should they buy like under, $1,000. So most of my gear is obviously always on the pro end. It's much more than that. But still, on that less expensive end, I'd still probably pick Nikon over Canon. But really, if you go Canon, Nikon, it doesn't really matter as much as people think. It's more about how you, the photographer, use your equipment, less about what your gear is. For instance, you can ask any musician, what's your favorite guitar? But if you go get the same guitar, it doesn't mean you're going to write the same song, right? You have to know how to play the guitar, and there's a lot of creativity in using it. So again, all cameras have the same settings: ISO, shutter, f-stop, and we're going to add to that also manual flash settings and manual color balance. And if you know those 5 things for your camera, whatever camera it is, even if it's some cheap no-name camera, you're going to get way better results than anybody using a really expensive camera, shooting it with kind of like auto settings, hoping to get great results. So, but that's what I use. Nikon, I'm actually shooting this video with Nikon. My point and shoot cameras. So this is kind of my older point and shoot. It's just a little Canon, and I like it. It's got a little flip out screen. The reason why I like this one, I'm not really worried if it breaks. I take this one water skiing. I take it boating, right? It's just, I think brand new, they're like $500. They're really great. What I like about it is dials. Dials, I can dial in my controls. I don't have to go through a menu to set things manually. My absolute favorite camera right now as a small point and shoot is my little Lumix. And what I like about this camera, let me go the other way here, is the same thing. You notice dials, all sorts of dials. I want to dial in my shutter speed, I dial it. Dial in my f-stop, I dial it. Dial in like exposure compensation, whatever. Everything's a dial, and it's got a nice retro look, which I like too. And it actually shoots 4K video, which is pretty cool. And none of these companies are paying me, by the way. My favorite strap, I have pretty much all of these, is the Black Rapid strap. What I like about this is that the strap stays put, but the camera slides. And there's some knockoff companies that are trying to rip these off, but this is a patented design, and I know the owner, and he's a really nice guy, and I would not buy anybody else's straps. This is the one I use a lot. It's the Sport. I have the one if the second camera comes off. I got the dual harness. I got a single one for just point and shoots. But I have pretty much all of my bag are all Black Rapid. Metering. Always need a meter, especially as a professional. This is my favorite meter, Sekonic, and this is the high-end Sekonic with the spot meter. But any Sekonic meter, even like their cheaper ones, are going to make you miles ahead of any other photographer. And then, of course, lastly, radios. So my radios of choice are Pocket Wizard. This is like kind of just a simple 4-channel one I use here in the studio for triggering my lights. And on location, I use the Flex and the Minis on my flashes. And then my last question I get a lot is, what kind of studio lights do you own? And for the last, 20 years, I think my whole studio's been Elechrome. I really dig Elechrome. My next favorite brand would be Profoto. People always say, but what if I don't want to spend that much? I want to spend less. What about such and such brand? Like, no, just buy Elechrome, just buy Profoto. One of those 2 brands, you're going to be great. Lighting is one of those things you keep hopefully your entire career. You're not buying it all the time. You're not buying new ones. You're not buying replacements. It's something you just buy. So invest in some good gear. So there you go. There's what I use. None of these are endorsements. These are all just, paid endorsements. These are all just my own personal choices for various reasons. If you have any other questions about what I use, how I use it, what I do, send me that question. Also keep in mind that I have full tutorials on how I use all of this gear at my website at BryCoxWORKSHOPS, BryCox Workshops.com. Until next time, America.